Hello, everybody. It's good to see you all again, and happy Saturday to you, or happy Sunday if you happen to be on the other side of the world. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk to everyone today about math. Although, as you may know, I usually do the daily live streams where we talk more about specific mathematics problems that people ask. Here on the weekend live stream, what I do is I'll talk about an interesting question which I've been thinking about lately. Then I'll maybe make a few comments about mathematics and the world and what we're seeing nowadays. And then we'll open up for questions, which is one of the most fun parts. As you may know, if you watch my daily live streams, I like to have questions from all different types of people and all different types of topics. But what we'll end up doing a lot here is we'll end up talking a lot about questions that might be related to things that aren't specific math problems, but maybe are bigger, broader concepts like learning math or what to do when we're all stuck at home nowadays. Okay, and now let's just go ahead and get started. I always open this weekend live stream with a math problem. And the math problem that I've been choosing nowadays is usually a math problem that I've actually been thinking about. So, as you may know, as some of the fans of our channel know, I've been working very hard on an app to help to attack coronavirus. And so these questions that I'm choosing for the weekend live stream are actually questions that I was just thinking about. And today, I was just thinking about this question. Now, it's not going to be stated as if it's about coronavirus. Instead, it's going to look like something that everyone can relate to. But I promise you I'll be able to tell you the connection between all of these things as soon as we launch, which will be at some point this week now. So here's the question. Let's suppose that the weather forecast says that there's going to be 1 hour of rain. And that hour of rain is going to be constant light rain for about half of it, and then it will switch to constant heavy rain. It's like you see a storm cloud coming on the radar, and you know it's going to come, but you don't know exactly when it's going to come over your head. Now you want to decide, you want to deduce when it actually switches. And so you take a little bucket, a beaker, and you put it outside to collect rain. A beaker is like this thing right over here. Now, you don't really want to run out into the rain all the time to go and check the beaker. So the question is how many measurements do you need to make to the beaker to look at the water level to guess when the rain switched from light to heavy? So this is the question. The question is something where the answer is going to be a whole number. The answer is just going to be a number like 1 or like 60 or like 5,000. But the point here is, I guess you're just hiding somewhere. You don't want to get wet. And you just have this beaker. And all you get to do is once in a while go out and check that beaker and decide, how much rain do I have so far? And you want to know what's the fewest number of times you can check this. What do you think? I always want to make sure there's some time for people to think. So here I've introduced the problem, and then we'll have, maybe a few minutes to let people think about this. Meanwhile, I'll make some comments to parents and coaches who may be watching. This is an example of an interesting problem. It's a problem which is all about words, and with these words, the answer might not be so hard to figure out if you can figure out what the words mean, and if you can think of a clever way to combine the math together. Also, this actually ties together some interesting and useful concepts from algebra. And I also can see that some people have some answers, like 3, 2, 5. Apparently, people aren't putting answers like 60. And, that's where I'll get to maybe where I believe my main philosophy is around doing problems, which is that you should always have hints. So the best way to do problems is to actually have an interesting hard problem and then throw a hint after about a minute. And the hint here says you don't have to check every minute on the beaker. So if you don't have to check every minute on the beaker, what might it be? So the answer is going to not be 60. And I see different people have different answers like 2, 3, 4, 8. And to parents and coaches, I want to make this point that somehow when you can think about a question for a while and then have a hint after about a minute, it's useful because that helps to jog your thinking. In this case, since we have a live stream, we can also see lots of people putting answers in the chat, which also helps with hints. But you can also see from the hints that there are lots of different kinds of answers. And so why this question is interesting is because it's going to tie together some fundamental concepts that are quite useful in algebra, or maybe you'll even see them in pre-algebra. And whenever you look at a question like this, you should be thinking, what kind of math concept might be behind it? Maybe this one. So here's something that's useful. Yes, and somebody has noticed, Temp ID has noticed that the water droplets are disappearing. That's true, because that's trying to illustrate that this big rain cloud has come by, right? It was light rain for a while, and then heavy rain. And here's an idea, which is that somehow the rate equation might be useful. Displacement equals rate times time. What good could that be? To parents and coaches, this is my example of a hint, which is where the second hint has been even more useful. And so if you ever are thinking how to help your students learn at home, my biggest advice is to go and find some interesting questions, and then to go and cook up some really good hints so that the hints can help you think your way through the answer, so that by the time I go or anyone goes and explains the whole thing, at least everyone has had a chance to play for a while. Wonder what the answer is. So at this point, we see lots of different answers have come into the chat. I see that people have stopped putting big answers, and the numbers have become smaller. I've seen more 2s and 3s and 4s. In that case, what could the answer be? Well, let's see. Somebody said 20, because why not? Somebody said 0, and we've got 4s. So maybe let's start talking about what principles might be behind this. First of all, the answer is not 0, because I should have to look at the beaker at least once. And also, it's not exactly clear what it means. Like, when I put the beaker out at the beginning, has it even started raining? Maybe yes, maybe no. So I will also say that the exact numerical answer is less interesting and less important than the reasoning. So the next thing I want to invite people to do, since we have this chance to have an interactive live stream, is, does anybody want to put a reason behind their answer? You know, I see people have said 2. Some people have said 3. Some people are saying look out the window. I guess that would also be a way to do it. But, you know, you don't even exactly know what it means to be light rain and heavy rain, right? It's like if you're looking out the window, I guess that would be one way of saying. One way of saying is just look out the window. But if you look out the window, maybe that means that you're making 3,600 measurements, 1 per second. That's a lot, right? I mean, what I'm saying is, like, there's this beaker out there. What's the fewest number of times you need to look at that beaker before you will have a good estimate for when that rain starts? So 2. Okay, so now I'm starting to see some ideas. 2, because the rate will change eventually. So do it twice during the time frame of 20 to 40 minutes, and maybe you'll see something. Actually, that's where we're getting to the first main principle here, which is to draw a graph. So the main principle of why I chose this question is, actually at the beginning, if you just think about the question and you don't realize that there's something clever to do, you just keep watching the beaker. And then your answer is 3,600. And if you use that for your app is very inefficient because it has to use too much battery and too much processor. I'm thinking about all of these things. I said app because, as you know, I'm working on a coronavirus app, and that's what you're thinking about right now is something that I'm programming into it. Okay, here's a graph. What should I graph? I guess this is called time. In a graph, what you do is you have 2 axes. So something is measuring time, and something else is measuring, what could I measure? I guess I have a beaker. Can anyone suggest what you should be measuring? What should I graph against time, given that all I can see is a beaker? Does anyone have a suggestion? What should be measured on the height of the graph? Water level. Thank you very much, Liu Jie Min. So we will measure the water level. And you know, the water level, if you've ever seen a beaker tells you like how much there is in it. The water level is usually measured in mLs. Maybe that would be what it is, milliliters. It doesn't actually matter what we're measuring in, but just it is measuring a certain volume. And since the beaker has a circular base, then as we go up, it's like the water level will just tell you how much volume there is. And also because it's just this circular base and it just goes straight up and down, it will go up at a constant rate, right? Well, almost. It's raining cats and dogs, you say. Well, indeed, at a certain point, it's going to rain cats and dogs. But what will this graph look like? I guess at the beginning, the graph will probably start out with, there'll be some water inside it, or maybe it'll be empty. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it starts empty. How about that? Let's start it empty. And if it starts empty, do people think that the water level will do this? Is this what happens? Is this what happens as you have, a beaker and you're having rain come down? Absolutely not. No. It should never go down, okay? I mean, if you have a beaker and this is the water level, as time goes on and on, the amount of water in the beaker should go up. I see all these people say no. Okay, so that can't be right. Then what should it be? So it should always be going up somehow. So should it be like this? Is this what it should look like? It slowly goes up. So some people say, no, 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 no. What's wrong with this one? Actually, there's something very important about how it goes up. I see that people have said linear. So it should be like this. Now, is this right? Is this what should happen? So as you go and let time go by, you look out the window and the amount of water in the water level, is this the way we should go? Unless it spills, it's not going to spill. Well, should it go straight like this? Maybe, yes, no. Can someone give a reason? Like, there's a light and heavy rain. Yes, thank you, Skylar. Skylar says there's a light and heavy rain. So if there's light and heavy rain, what happens? Well, you see, this is called the slope. We actually had some people ask about this in the daily live stream about slopes, right? And so the deal is the slope is basically telling you, let's just give an example. First of all, it's not like this. It will start out linear for a while. And what the slope means is, who knows? Maybe over here, you have a certain amount of time. Oops. Oh, no. Undo. Okay, thankfully we have undo here. Now can I be more accurate? Oh, yeah, that was not the eraser. There we go. Okay, right. So if I have this right here, why it should be this constant slope is because if I go like this amount of time, who knows how long that is? Maybe that's like, maybe this is called 10 minutes. And this is called 20 minutes. If I have 10 minutes and 20 minutes, then somehow the amount of water in the beaker should just double because the rain has been still at this slow rate. However, at some point, the rain changes rate, and it does from light to heavy. Do people agree with this kind of a picture? So the rain's going to do something like this. And somebody said, yes, we actually hit 333 people, perhaps for an instant. So you see, the rain kind of goes, and indeed, that's right, it does indeed get steeper. At a certain point, which I don't know, it's going to do that. Okay? So now the question is, how many times do I need to look out that window to go and figure out when this was? You see, this is actually pretty cool, because before, if you don't realize that there's this graph here, you'd be like, if I need to know exactly which second the rain changes, I need to keep my eyes glued to the window, and I can't watch a live stream like this. So instead, you hear a sound. That's an interesting way too. But, like, you can hear sounds. Maybe it depends where you live. Actually, I'll say the people who watch my live stream don't all live in houses. Is there anyone here from New York City? I don't know. But if there's anyone here who lives in like a tall building, then you won't hear the rain coming down from above you because you don't have a roof above you. You know what I mean? Oh, Toady Master is from New York City. Wonderful. So you see, our live stream is reaching lots of people. But now, okay. So now, if I know that it's going to change somewhere between here and here, where should I observe it? I see some people say 3. Actually, when you have an observation style, the observation style will be, you can tell me exactly which minute, tell me which minutes you want to go and observe. Don't just give me a number. Tell me which minute you want to be observing. By the way, at this point we can say we know that it starts at 0. So we just ran out right now. It started at 0. So I already know that. This is like, I don't care if your answer was slightly off by 1 because of this, but that one we already know. We know that point. And people are saying measure at 25, 30, and 35. So 25, 30, and 35 is a good idea, except that 30 is dangerous. I don't know if 30 is after this point or before this point. Someone says 10, 11, and 60. So let's see. Suppose the only things I knew, so remember this graph. I'm going to go to the next screen. What if all I know, I want blue. What if the only thing I've observed in this graph is 0, 0, and also, hang on. I need to move my pen slower. 10, 11, and 60. If the only thing I know is that there's some point on the graph that's here, some point on the graph that's here, and some point on the graph that's here, can you figure out exactly where it switches? It doesn't seem that easy. You see, if I draw this, there's like a bunch of choices. If I draw this, it could, unfortunately, look like this. You know what I mean? So like, that won't work quite so well. And actually, I shouldn't have drawn it that far out because I said it's close to half an hour that it switches. So we just don't know exactly where it switches. But someone has a different idea. Their idea is to go with like, you could do 27, 30, 33, but that's dangerous too. That's kind of in the middle. Let me show you why that's dangerous. Suppose the only things I measured were 27, 30, and 33. If I measured 27, 30, and 33, let's pretend 30 is here, 27 is here, 33 is there. Actually, they should be equally spaced. 33 is here. And if that's the case, then I know it goes through here. And let's pretend I also know it goes through here, here, and here. Uh-oh, that's a problem, because what I just drew is consistent with this picture. But I don't know exactly where that is. Now some people are suggesting 25, 27. Well, that seems like a lot. Is there an easier way? 10, 15, 25, 40. Actually, here's a question. How many points do I need to figure out what's the slope of this part of the line? You know, I'm sort of doing overkill. I've got 3 points here. I don't really need overkill. Some people are saying only 4. 10, 50, and 60. Let's try that. What if I measured 10, 50, and 60? Let's pretend this was sort of to scale. It's not. Actually, this is not quite to scale. The 10 should be a little bit more that way. The 50 should be a little bit back that way. You know what? I like drawing things to scale. Let's make it to scale. How do you make it to scale? You cut the 60 into half, and then the third of that is the 10, and the 50 is around here. Okay? Now look, if I measure this, and I also measured this, and this, what do you get to do? You get to draw 2 lines. As you draw these 2 lines, you can go and figure out where they cross. One goes this way, the other goes that way, and at some point, those 2 lines cross. Does that make sense? That's actually really cool. That green thing is not one of your measurements. That green thing is just figuring out where these 2 lines cross. In fact, this is an Algebra 1 problem. So, amazing! Yes, thank you very much. I also thought this was amazing. You see, like, look at that. I already know it starts out empty, okay? I just need to measure 1 point over here. Whoops. 1 point over here. The second point over here. And the third point over here. And if I just measure those 3 points, since I started out with an empty beaker, bam, I got it. And that's like so easy. You know, like if you just were trying to look out the window, you just have to keep watching the window. Or if you were like listening to the rain, you'd have to just keep paying attention to the rain, and you wouldn't be able to watch this live stream. Your ears would all be thinking about something else. But instead, all you have to do is just measure these things. It's amazing. And so the answer is 3. You cannot do it with 2 for the reason that I wouldn't be able to know the slope of this line unless I got another point on that line. And so I need to have 1 more point there. And I can't find the slope of this line unless I have 2 points on it. And that's it. And if you're curious, how would you actually find that particular point? That turns out to be a standard math problem that you do in Algebra 1. Maybe some people here have taken Algebra 1. And it's like, look, I've got a point which is at 10 across and, I don't know, 3 up. And I've got 2 other points over here. You write some equations. Oh, yes, you asked, is it the slope of the line? Yes, this is about slopes of lines. You actually can just do this with something called point slope form to go and find out the equation of this line. And then this particular line is the easiest one to find the equation of. For example, if it happened to be 10 here, and let's pretend it went up to, I don't know, 3. Suppose this went up to 3. Then the equation of this particular line would just be, in the point slope form, this would be y equals to 3 over 10 times x. And that's the equation of one of these lines. On the other hand, to get this one, you have 2 points. There's a standard way to get an equation for 2 points to get the equation of that line. And you set these 2 equations together, solve for x and y, you're done. I won't do that last part in this particular lesson, only because the main purpose of this particular lesson and all my lessons is to open the eyes to what you can do with the math. And as soon as we reduce it to something that's standard, which you will actually do in every Algebra 1 class, you will solve equations like this, then you'd be done. But the marvel is that you only need to do 3 measurements. Okay, great. So this is what I was thinking about today. In fact, I need this in order to make it so that on our app, we don't burn everyone's battery. Of course, our app is not measuring rain. I think that by next week, I will probably be able to give you a pretty interesting live stream. Because next week's live stream is going to, in fact, talk about all of these things, that the relationship between what all of these questions have been for this week, previous week, and the week before that, and the work that I've been doing on coronavirus. So yeah, this is cool. Next time, if you ever need to measure something, whether it's rain or anything else, if it's something that goes at a slow rate for a while, and then suddenly goes at a higher rate, like slow rate and then high rate, you can use this trick, and it's super, super efficient. Okay. Actually, I see somebody has asked a question. What if it's not raining consistently? Now, that's a deep question. And in fact, in what I'm trying to use this on, it's not consistent. When it's not consistent, you need to do some averages. So in fact, what you need to do for that, well, thanks for asking the question. I'll bring that back. I'll bring that back since I have the power to do that. So, over here, if you don't have something consistent, I'll show you what you actually have to do. If you don't have something consistent, you use something which is more complicated. It's from deeper in statistics, and so that's way beyond what we can talk about for like the algebra and geometry crowd. But if I have a bunch of points, in general, it will look something like this. You'll be able to get a bunch of things which is not quite on a line, and you'll also get a bunch of things which are not quite on a line. Does this make sense? You'll get some things and they aren't perfect. They aren't perfect at all. There is something that uses a topic called matrices. It's something that you learn in Algebra 2, usually, or pre-calculus. And that will let you draw a line that goes sort of through those points. It's a line of best fit. Thank you very much, Rohan. So, by the way, what I'm showing you is we're using the mathematical insight of, oh, there are 2 lines on this graph to reduce the problem to other problems that have already been solved. And so you draw 2 lines of best fit. One through here, and one through there. That was not a very good fit. Undo. One through there. Looks like this line needs to go longer. And you just go and see where they cross. So you make 2 lines of best fit, and that's it. Okay, and that's what you would need to do in a real life situation. Let's go back to the rest of this live stream then. So what we'll do with the rest of the time here is, as I said, I usually do these live streams where the first part of it is where I tell you an interesting question and we talk through some math. And then after that, I'll say a few comments about, math and learning and so on. And then we'll open it up to all kinds of questions, okay? We'll get to questions very soon. So, comments about math and learning. I've actually been thinking a lot about this because as we have everybody at home now, even I have been trying to figure out what's the best way to teach online. Now, of course, my perspective is, how do you teach online? When you want to teach online, then it's very difficult because I normally can't interact as well with people until we figured out YouTube Live. And then we see that we can really interact in real time with people who are asking things like, why do you like blue shirts? We'll hit all of these questions. These are fun. But so that's from my perspective on the teaching side. I've also watched as a parent, as my kids have been, doing their online classes because they have to take classes from their school, which has just started again. And so what I can see is that with the online format, a lot of schools seem to be using a way where the teachers are providing some very good things for you to do, but then you also have a lot of free time that you can use to go and try to explore other things. What I have observed is quite effective is if you use that free time to go and do hard things. And so I recommend you use all of your free time, not to go and necessarily say, don't need to do anything because there's no school, but more of, wow, there's actually enough time to go think about something hard. Like this problem I was just doing about this rain or whatever the real application might be. I had to sit down and think about it for a while and write stuff down, and I didn't know the answer. So that would be what I would recommend that you do. Now, there's another thing, which is during this period, it's also really interesting because it's possible to almost watch from anyone. I found this very, very remarkable because I was watching how some of my friends actually started hanging out with each other online, even though they live in different cities. So in some sense, even though we're all stuck at home, we're also able to reach over very, very broad distances. So I would also recommend that you use this time to indeed go and take advantage of the fact that suddenly you can just go and hear from anyone. This is pretty interesting. You can hear from people even when you're not there. Speaking of which, I will say that on Monday, which is in 2 days, our daily live stream will in fact be at a different time. And the reason it's at a different time is because I'm actually doing a talk at the National Museum of Mathematics. That's in New York City. But of course, I'm not going to be in New York City. We'll be live streaming it on this YouTube channel. I believe it's from 6:30 until 8 p.m. And so if you want to watch that, that will actually be a session which is to the people who would normally be going to the National Museum of Mathematics in New York City. But these are just examples. And then I recommend for everyone to keep looking for these kinds of sources, which will let you go and see from anyone, which might even be people who you normally can't see because they normally aren't right where you are. And one last thing I want to give as advice. When you're looking at all of these resources, I really do recommend that in this period of time, when you don't have an exam coming up right away, go and try to find a way to learn how to think broadly. And that is exactly why I've been using all of my live streams, not to just teach one particular concept, but to kind of tie everything together to let you see how a scientist, mathematician, engineer, how we put all of these ideas together. That's one of the most useful things you can get in this period. Okay, well with that, let's run into questions. Because again, we're running this as an interactive live stream. And so I've seen a lot of interesting questions come in. I'm going to hit a bunch of them. I saw the first one, which was, why do you wear a blue shirt? I wear a blue shirt because those are the easiest shirts to find. If you go to the store, somehow there's lots and lots of blue shirts. So great, then I don't have to think. And besides, then I can blend into the background. Although people have said if I wear a green shirt, I'll blend into the background even more. We'll figure out something to do with the green shirt soon. I saw somebody else also asked, what can you do? I saw somebody else ask, red screen. Like, red screen, that's interesting. If you do a red screen, I'll tell you what will happen. Then your face will kind of disappear because there's a lot of red in your face too. I saw some other people ask, is your app free? Yes, of course it's free. I mean, if you look at the kinds of things that I've been trying to do, a lot of what I do is trying to have as much social impact as possible. And so, yes, the goal was to build something that can be used by as many people as possible. To be perfectly honest, I had been actually hoping to release the app today so I could even talk about it on this live stream with you, but we have actually spent today doing some last minute fixes and trying to make it work better. And also, I've been deciding to put in this idea that I just talked about in this live stream into the app. Okay. What is the app's name? You'll hear about it soon. Don't worry. Just stay tuned. It'll be pretty good. Let's see. I want to also open up another channel I have here. I have another communication channel. I've got all these screens here. That's how I can keep in touch with our moderation team and also see what everyone else is asking. So I see that there are quite a few questions asking things like, why are primes called prime? Well, you know, I can take that. I don't know. I don't know why primes are called prime. I think that they're special. So I'll say that with names. I'm one of these people who's not very good with like arbitrary names. I just know concepts. And so for me, the concept of a prime is just some number which you cannot break into any smaller prime factors, any smaller factors. And that's just my concept of prime. I became more used to thinking about math concepts as their concepts and not as their names because I spent about 3 years going to China like every 2 months giving math talks because I wanted to learn Chinese actually. And so I decided to go and give some math talks. And I found myself having to talk about math where I didn't know the name of the concept. And I found out that you can actually communicate very well just talking about concepts. And then I also realized we shouldn't spend all of our time being focused just on the names of things. I think that, unfortunately, sometimes people spend too long just thinking about the names. And instead, what we should do is not think about the names, think about how they fit together. Just like what we just did today. I used very little vocabulary, but we just kind of drew these two lines and we saw, that's how you figure out when the rain starts. Other questions. Lyndon Liu asks, what are you doing right now? I am talking to you, Lyndon Liu. This is a live stream. This is not pre-recorded. And I have to say that's one of the funnest things about a live stream, to know that there are actually real people who are asking real questions. And, well, okay, you were asking what else am I doing. So I can tell you what I spent my whole day doing. I've been working on this coronavirus app. And in fact, I spent my whole day glued in front of a computer. The computer has 3 monitors because that's how I can see all of the source code that I'm programming. And I've been trying to do interesting things with sound. That's all I'll say. I've been trying to do interesting things with sound. And sound is remarkable. I'll tell you another hint. Sound is remarkable because sound has a speed. Oh, this came up in our daily live stream. The speed of sound is 300 meters per second. And that's pretty interesting. It means that if you're in a huge football stadium and you clap, that clap is not heard across the football stadium for a little bit of time. And that's pretty interesting. Okay, more questions. Me says, what is the best way to learn combinatorics for math competitions? I wish I knew that answer when I was doing math competitions, because I was the worst at combinatorics. I thought combinatorics was hard. Like, what are you supposed to do? All of these questions, they could be, like, you could use anything to solve it. And what if you count this way and it's an answer, and you count the other way and it's a different answer? I found it hard. And it was only later in my life that I figured out that combinatorics also actually had some kind of reason to it. And I eventually started making my own combinatorics classes. Actually, when I was at I'm still at Carnegie Mellon University. When I teach my classes, I don't use books. In fact, I make my own curriculum because I think that that's maybe the easiest way to take a few concepts together. So the answer is actually, the way I learned combinatorics was from an expert. He was my PhD advisor. He was my professor when I was doing my PhD. And he knew how all these concepts fit together. And I learned from him. And after I learned from him, I went and made my own classes, which went and taught how these things work. In fact, if you are a PhD student, you are actually very welcome to tune into my graduate level, PhD level combinatorics class, which I live stream on this channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But if you're not a PhD student, it might be kind of hard. On the other hand, if you want other courses, actually one of the students who took my Carnegie Mellon undergraduate course last year, it was a college student course, he wrote a book. And we're going to put that, I'm going to get involved in that book too. We're going to make a book, which is like that class that I taught. And also, of course, if you're interested, we have actually made the entire online course on combinatorics. That's in the Daily Challenge with Po-Shen Loh. That's our official online course. This is the live stream where I get to talk to people in real time. Other questions. What do we have here? Wow. Po-Shen Loh says no chat. I did? I'm very, I'll say I'm actually very, what's the right word to say? I don't want to say the word honored, but I mean, I'm sort of like, it gives an interesting feeling to see if like people are impersonating you. So to me, whenever I see things like that, I'm like, that's pretty interesting. So you decided to impersonate me. I get a kick out of that, to be perfectly honest. The only time it becomes very strange is if you're like out in public and you see somebody else publicly impersonating you in some other venue or some other person's chat. Then it's like, wait, that's not actually me. That's just someone else. Okay. Oh, so Hao Lipman, Hao Li Yuan, my vision is not very good, asks, what is your real name? It actually is Po-Shen Loh. That's my real name. More questions. Oh, great. Now I can actually read your user ID because it's closer to me. P14YRON3 asks, Professor Loh, what keyboard do you use for coding? So I'm a big fan of these things called mechanical keyboards. Mechanical keyboards, just a second, I'm just reactivating the screen. Mechanical keyboards are these keyboards which if you press, they go ka-chunk, 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 sort of like a typewriter. I strongly believe that these kinds of keyboards make you much, much more efficient at typing. So in fact, in my office, where we have a team of people who help me work on the daily challenge, help me work on building the app that we're making, we have all of these noisy keyboards. Everyone's going ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. It sounds just like the 1950s. These keyboards are awesome. The reason they're awesome is because when you press a key, it doesn't just make a noise. In fact, it makes you have a feeling because it has a little switch inside. So you press it and your finger feels that it went ch-chuk. And that's actually how you know if you type a few letters. Just from the feeling of it, you get an instinct and a reaction which tells your brain right away you made a typo. Because I don't know if any of you have experienced this, like on a laptop keyboard, you kind of type, and it's like after a while you realized, oh my goodness, I meant to write T-E-T-H-E, like the, and instead it wrote like T-E-H. It was like out of order. How annoying. You have to keep watching the screen. But with a mechanical keyboard, you don't even have to look. If you're just typing along, you'll be like, oh, it felt wrong. Because the T and then the E went before the H. You can feel it, and you don't even have to look at the screen. So I strongly recommend mechanical keyboards. I don't sell any, but the ones that we found that are pretty good are on Amazon.com. And if you're curious, I like the blue switches. That's not just because I wear a blue shirt. That's because those are the most clacky. They're the best for typing. More questions. Oh, somebody has asked, do you use the QWERTY keyboard, Q-W-E-R-T-Y? Maybe that was your question. The answer is yes, I actually do. I didn't learn this Dvorak, the one which has a different keyboard layout. More questions. Oh, Cindy Cindy UWU asks, when do you think that COVID-19 will slow down based on how things are currently going? So this is exactly why I'm getting involved. The reason I'm getting involved is because the way things are currently going is not going to solve the problem. This is actually a major issue. In fact, I have a colleague. Colleague means there's another professor at my university. His name is Wes Pegden, and he and his wife have put out an article which is sort of really drawing attention to this very important fact that if all you're doing is you're not getting as many people infected, but if you don't have anything else to do to solve beyond that, you're just delaying when everyone will get infected. Because somehow the way we've talked at a previous live stream about the models of how people will get infected and when the thing gets faster, when the curve of how many people are infected is higher versus lower. And the issue is that it doesn't actually slow down the growth of the curve unless there's a fundamentally different thing that can stop people from infecting each other. And the biggest problem with coronavirus right now is that there are a lot of people who are walking around who don't know they're sick, who are actually sick and who are possibly infecting other people. So in my opinion, until somebody manages to slow down or stop these like people who don't know they're sick but getting other people sick, if we don't, I mean, we have to slow that down. And if we can slow that down, then maybe finally we can get back to normal. So that's my opinion. We need to have some way to make it so that the people who are sick but don't know it have some way of not getting as many people sick. Then we'll actually be able to make progress. Until then, unfortunately, not. Hopefully we'll have a way to do that soon. Other questions? Is it Ray Chang? Again, my vision is quite bad. You said herd immunity. And that's right, H-E-R-D, herd immunity. That's like when enough people in the whole population have some form of immunity. That's one way of doing things. The other way of doing things is to reduce the number of people that you can get infected. So, yeah, it's a tough problem. But actually, some very serious people like Bill Gates and others have been trying to think of ways to reduce the number of people you could infect when you are sick. And there'll be more soon. Okay. Oh, yes, there's a question. Hao Li-Yuan asks, do you have COVID-19? Not that I can tell yet. And given the behavior that I've been myself using and the kinds of people I've been seeing, I don't think so, because somehow my network of people that I see all the time is so small that it wouldn't be able to let me get COVID-19 easily. And that's a very interesting observation that I wanted to share with you. What's relevant is actually the network structure of who you know. Not who you know, who you're seeing. In some sense, if you had a group of people, which was like 100 people, and those 100 people all moved to some island in the South Pacific Ocean, they could just go and hang out all they want with each other. Actually, for all you know, maybe I'm in that island in the South Pacific Ocean. Actually, it's not true. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But then, anyway, it's like somehow you could actually get this group of people all together, and as long as they make it so that their network has no good connections to the outside world, they'll be fine. So this problem is actually fundamentally a network problem. It's actually related to combinatorics. That's the area of math that I work on. So I think about this quite a lot. More questions. What can we do here? Oh my gosh. So Eleanor Chen says he should really bring his kids on the screen. I won't bring my kids to anything. If they wanted to show up on a screen, they would show up on a screen. I think that somehow, my kids, at least 2 of them are kind of old enough to do their own thing. They don't need to be pulled onto a screen. On the other hand, I'm going to say for any of you guys, if you think that what I'm doing looks interesting, I hope that maybe it makes you think of doing something like this when you are maybe 20 years older than you are now. When I was younger, I always just looked at people and sometimes I was like, that person's doing some pretty cool stuff. And even though I was small, I would be like, well, I wonder if I can do some of that someday. And I'll just always look at how they do stuff. And after a while, after I got enough experience, I would often try to do it myself. So yeah, what I'm giving that, why I said that is because nothing's to stop you from going on screen yourself too. You don't need to just have someone pull you. Okay. Let's see. Again, I'm going to open that screen over there so I can see some more. Haha, this is very interesting. I've thought of this question too. The Fun Masters have asked, why don't we split the world in half? One for infected and one for somebody who doesn't. I think what you mean is somehow, as soon as you're infected, go one way. If you're not infected, go the other way. My understanding is that the United Kingdom is trying to do this. They were also the guys who were talking about this herd immunity stuff. So this notion that you would just like split everyone into two groups is also something I thought might make sense until I realized that you can get infected, you might be able to get infected twice. Then it doesn't work anymore, right? So that's actually where what I feel is that the world has changed fundamentally. I mean, when I look at this and I think about history and even the history of medicine and the history of biology, you know, 200 years ago, it was completely normal for disease to kill people. And then at some point, we invented something. It was called antibiotics. And after we invented antibiotics, somehow people were able to live much, much, much longer. There's only one problem. As some of you know, COVID-19 has a V in it. Does anyone know what the V stands for in COVID-19? Hint, it's not bacteria. Unfortunately, the V stands for virus. And so because it happens to be a virus, we don't have any good antivirals. So effectively what has to happen is that we have to either find a way to stop viruses, like similar to the breakthrough that stopped bacteria, or we'll be living in a very different world for a while. So that's why I don't think the splitting into two groups will work. Unfortunately, the virus mutates. And after a while, you don't even know, like, are you immune to version 2 of the virus? It's very complicated. Yeah, it's an interesting world that we're going to be living in for a while. And I'll encourage you, learn as much math and science as you can. If you've watched the style of all of my live streams that I've been running, my live streams are not math live streams. Well, they are actually. There's a lot of math. But they're not just math. I'm trying to show you that using all of these things together are the only way to actually have some impact on this crazy world that we live in today. More questions. Let's see. Yen C asks, do you like music? Oh, I love music. I think that music is beautiful. I guess I like things that are beautiful. What does beautiful mean? It's very hard to describe, but it's something that in some sense makes your brain think it's very patterned. There's like a structure, or things are just right. Or maybe it's like beautifully unstructured. But beauty is something which is maybe unusual or special. And music is special. In fact, when you go and see what's involved in composing music, you actually have to find the right notes to put next to each other to make your brain think that it's nice. So I think it's really, I really think it's nice. Now, something about how I got certain tastes in music, I can tell you a funny story. So when I was in high school, I think I read some article that said, there was a study that said that if people listen to classical music while they're doing a problem or doing a task, they do it better. And classical music supposedly makes you able to kind of think more clearly and calm down. And indeed, the way that they compose classical music is often very structured, and it's very nice like that. On the other hand, do you know what's the worst kind of music to listen to? If you're trying to concentrate, the absolute worst kind of music to listen to is stuff like rock music or pop music, which not only has like all of those crazy different rhythms and sudden sounds, but also it even has words in there that are making you think about the words instead of concentrating on what you're supposed to listen to. And so that's why I started listening to rock music. You see, this was because when I was in high school, I was doing these contests. I was doing math contests, I was doing computer programming contests. And one of the worst things is if you're doing this contest and you suddenly get distracted while you're supposed to concentrate on the problem, you know? Like in a real contest, what if somebody next to you drops their pencil? Or what if like the alarm goes off? Or what if like it's just like there's somebody walking around, it's the proctor. What in the world are they walking around for? Oh, I guess to make sure I'm not cheating. But anyway, it's just like all these annoying things that are happening, causing you not able to concentrate. So what I said is, I know what I'll do. I'm going to practice doing math problems with a radio behind my head blasting rock music. That's what I'll do. Because it's sort of like what all those athletes do preparing for the Olympics. If you're preparing for the Olympics and you're running a race, what you do is you train on top of the mountain where there's less oxygen. So you're not as efficient when you run. And then finally you do it for real and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. So that's how I got started listening to rock music. And then I sort of liked it. And then I was like, this is actually kind of nice music. And somehow my brain then learned how to listen to rock music while also doing math at the same time. And so that's actually what I enjoy doing. To this day, I found that very useful because I find it interesting to listen to the kind of music that everyone listens to because that helps me to understand what people are thinking about. That to me is very important because these days I focus a lot of my energy on trying to help people, and the easiest way to help people is to know kind of what things they are thinking about. And by definition, popular music is what they're listening to. Oh my gosh, we have we have actually unfortunately run out of time. I'll do one last question. Okay, I'll do one last question. Somebody asked, who is your idol? I think the way you spelled it, you might have spelled it differently. My guess is what you're asking is, who do I think is doing interesting stuff that I look up to? I'll give you a few examples of people that inspire me very much. There are some amazing, brilliant mathematicians who come up with things just like that. One example is Terence Tao. I think that's amazing. But I'm not only interested by mathematicians, I'm actually also extremely inspired by people who do some very significant things but themselves are extremely smart, and also they get teams of people to work really hard to do crazy things. I'm going to name Elon Musk. I think that guy's pretty darn interesting. He's extremely smart. He's extremely smart. He's extremely quick too, and he works like crazy. Not many people can run two major companies at the same time that also achieve things, right? So that's another example. But I'll give you a third example. Bill Gates. There are examples of people who have done amazing things that have impacted the whole world, and afterwards they have decided to go and use their money and their resources to try to help build a better world for everyone. I'll give you those three. And with that, I think I'm going to just remind everyone that the live stream that is normally scheduled for tomorrow's slot is in fact going to move. It will be from 6:30 until 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And that's only because anyway, for that hour and a half, I'm going to be running a session for the Museum of Mathematics. The title of that session is actually about the quadratic equation that some of you may have heard about me being involved with before. Otherwise, I will wish everyone a very, very good rest of your weekend. Please stay safe. And please do think always about what you can do to try to make a difference in this crazy world that we happen to live in. See you next time.